Whatever you tell me to do, you ultimately
Right.
know the provision, you know the plans in front of me, so let me go and submit my will to your will.
All I can say is I sat here in the seat or whatever. If it wasn't to hear anything else, it was to hear that, man. Because that's actually something internally that I've just been personally struggling with, where it's like I'm hearing it and it's like, dude, you got to get to that point. Because when you think about where you're at right now, it may, once you die to that part,
Yes,
you know, it may be a struggle where it's like, man, you really crave it. But once you know that you're in the will of God, the way that the will of God wants you to be, things just like smooth sailing.
I never imagined my journey would inspire people all over the world.
Hello, my name is Nema and I'm from Zambia. So I love the Dear Future Wifey podcast.
For me to see people being so real, so honest, and so true about the real situations in life.
Hi, I'm Natalie from Belgium, and I would like to say thank you.
I value your content because it is Christ-centered.
You have set a standard in love.
Dear Future Wifey podcast has opened my understanding.
I highly recommend that everyone, whether you're single, you're married, you're divorced, you're widowed, everyone to go follow this podcast.
Continue with me as I discover, uncover, and recover love. I'm Latera Whitfield, and welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. I'm your host, Latera Whitfield. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you take a moment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you'll be notified about upcoming episodes, and make sure you share this video. If you're watching this on other platforms, leave a review if that streaming service allows you to do so, and share so we can get the word out about the Dear Future Wifey podcast. I know y'all see me rocking this shirt right now. This is Black History Month, so to pay a little tribute to one of my favorite shows growing up, The Cosby Show. If you grew up in the 80s, then you know that this is gonna put you in the mind of that Gordon Trail that Theo tried to rock by way of Denise making him a bootleg version. So shout out to The Cosby Show. My homeboy Carl Payne was on that show. It's good, one of my closest friends and whatnot. Well, without further ado, I have an awesome gentleman on the podcast today. I met him a couple of weeks ago. I mean, as soon as we got on the phone, we hit it off. This brother is full of depth. It's full of transparency and full of authenticity. That's one thing that I really appreciate from him. He is an acclaimed chef. If you are in the Houston area, then you know this brother. If you watch the TV show Ready to Love, then you saw this brother show up as his authentic self and actually show men that they could be vulnerable and can share their emotions. So without further ado, welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. My homie, Edwin Henderson. What's up, bro? What's up?
What's going on, brother? Appreciate you for having me on.
Edwin, so let me tell you something. On Ready to Love, you showed up as your authentic self, huh?
I did, 100%.
So you were very vulnerable on the show. You brought up a lot of taboo subject matters where men were, a lot of men are afraid to show their emotions, afraid to show tears. On the podcast, we create a safe space for people to show their emotions. I'm very emotional. I let people know that I cry. Yeah. When I hurt, I cry. If I didn't cry, then people will die.
Oh yeah.
So let me cry so people don't die. So we're gonna call this episode Heal First. Heal first, because you said something on the exit of Ready to Love that really spoke volumes. Do you know what I'm speaking of?
Yeah, when it was just about me taking that opportunity just to give some self-love to myself first before I actually even tried to dive into a relationship. So I definitely remember that moment, and it was a very real moment at that time.
So you said give yourself self-love. What do you mean by that?
The biggest thing with me is I am a workaholic, and there are moments where I just will not really stop just to care for myself. I'll do things for other people. I'll go out and I'll serve the homeless. I'll, make sure my son is taken care of, my family is taken care of, and anybody that's in need of help. But my thing is that I don't take that moment to step away just to decompress, or just to go do something as simple as get a massage or a pedicure or whatever it may be, just to, kind of pamper myself, just to, allow myself that moment of relaxation.
So it's not just something that you deal with. A lot of men deal with that. A lot of men we're taught to be the providers, the protectors, but we don't take time to nurture ourselves. And that's important for you to say, love myself. Yeah. What areas or what times in your life do you recollect not loving yourself?
I could say there are several moments where I just didn't take the moment to love myself because I literally would just kind of get into this workflow. And would be exhausted, from working so much, but not really stopping to take that time to rest because, my background from the military and law enforcement has always been that hustle and bustle. I remember when I first went on patrol, you are a rookie on the street, and the biggest thing that they always say is just get out there and, they kind of say, they always use the term hump it. Get out there and just take as many calls as you can. Don't worry about it. Just get out there and answer the calls and kind of make a name for yourself that way as that hard worker. And then also growing up in.
So you was out there. You was humping out there.
I was out there taking every single call. Like you could literally look at the MDT system, the computer system in the car, and a lot of the old heads or whatever. They're just certain calls that they wouldn't take because they felt like they had the seniority.
But you running out there.
I'm running out there taking all of them. Most of the calls that I would take. I always would pride myself on situations like this. Is that if it was a homicide or if it was something that I had to work in regards to that, I would do 90% of the work. So by the time the detective came on the scene, he didn't have much to do. I literally handed over my notes to him, and they would finish off the scene. But it was more things.
So they liked you, huh?
Absolutely loved me.
They said, "Where's Edwin at?" Yeah, we want to take a call that Edwin already had surveyed. So that's pretty dope. So you said after that, continue. You said now, in law enforcement, you spent time in the military, and then as a chef. Are you not taking care of yourself, or was there moments where you just became a workaholic, where you're not doing that?
It just becomes that moment I become a workaholic. Like even right now, like I even found myself getting sucked back into that flow because right now after being on the show,
you hot right now.
I'm telling you, my inbox is blowing up. My DMs are full.
Both ways, you get business and girls trying to give you the business.
Both. I'm getting business and girls are trying to give me the business, and it's like. They some women are trying to throw it at me, but you got to throw it. You got to throw it back.
Hot potato.
Hot potato. You can't take everybody's potato. So it's one of those things where I honestly, like this past weekend, I'm actually getting ready to start a series where I'm going to partner with 3 different yoga instructors in the city of Houston. And it's going to be a part of my self-care to where I actually schedule it. Because I can tell you this is that if I don't schedule time for myself, I won't take the time.
Yeah.
I will literally take every private chef experience. I will try to do every job that there possibly is out there. And so I had to remind myself, like, Edwin, if you don't put this in your calendar like you do everything else, you won't ever do it. So Saturday I did a mini yoga session so she could take an assessment of, what kind of program she was going to set up. But I want to make other people a part of it because I realize if I'm having the same struggle, other men are having that same issue as well. And I feel if I actually put it out there and allow others to view it, maybe they'll be inspired to be able to do the same for themselves.
So was that seed first planted on the show when you did the yoga with Joy?
I would honestly say yeah, because that was a dynamic date between Joy and I. When I first got on the resort, the first thing that came to mind was I'm like, this would be a lovely place to do yoga at because I'm absolutely enamored with scenery and just the beauty of God's nature.
Yes,
it was a very peaceful area. And so when I first put it out to the producers, they said, "Well, I think we can make that happen." And this is long before I ever knew that Joy and I were going to connect that way. They just was like, we could potentially set up a date like that for you. And so when they came back to me and they said, "Oh, you know what? You and Joy getting ready to go on a yoga date." I'm like, "Word,
thank you."
Thank you. They had a little diagram set up for me. I always had a little date bag because Joy always knew I carried incense, candles.
He said he had a date bag.
I had my little ring pop in there for her. I had a Capri Sun juice pouch in there. So it was about kind of make it romantic and fun at the same time.
He said Capri.
I had all of that, and so when we did it, I can honestly say being on that resort and actually even being on the show has really compelled me to take that time because I know Joy talks about it. Winter talks about it quite a bit.
What do they say?
Just talking about self-care as a whole. Like she's always, any of her videos that she posts on IG is always in regards to self-love and taking care of yourself. and just making that time, and then also being able to forgive yourself. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've gotten from a lot of different ones on the show is about forgiving yourself in certain situations. Because I'm very hard on myself. I will be so hard on myself, and sometimes you have to step back and say, you know what? But you're further along, not necessarily in comparison to most, but you have to give yourself credit for the things that you have done.
There it is.
That's the biggest thing, is giving yourself credit. Because if you don't give yourself credit, you'll constantly always look at situations and say, "Oh, I'm not doing enough, and I'm not doing enough.
I can do better."
Exactly.
Pat yourself on the back and say, "I made it. I'm a whole lot further than where I started."
Exactly, and that's the biggest thing, is where I'm at. I said to myself, I may not necessarily be where I ideally should be, but I'm a hell of a lot farther than where I was before.
When you look at the subject matter of love or the desire of love, do you want to be married?
I do. I absolutely want to be married.
You already have you have one child. Are you open to having more?
I am open to having another child.
So when you come to the table, you say, "Hey, I'm a man that that's not oblivious about my flaws." We've had talks. You're a Christian man, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
So you're a Christian man. You're a believer. You sing in the choir at the church. So you're active. You're just not somebody that goes to church. You're active in church, and you have strong accountability partners around. I gleaned that from you through a conversation with your connection with Pastor Oversight. And so what are you looking for in a woman, and why do you feel like you haven't found that yet?
I would say the biggest thing that I'm looking for in a woman first is a friend. You know, I think once you can establish just a good friendship with somebody, and you have somebody that you just know that if anything arises in that relationship, whether it be you all getting into an argument or whatever, this is still my friend. This is somebody that I confide in, somebody that I can express my thoughts to, and that can be open and honest with me. But you also want somebody that is a support system, and somebody that can push you and propel you to the next level. Because when I think about the dynamic of a relationship, and I think about, honestly, how God created relationship to be, that although, you know, you may have the structure where the man is the head, and then you know, it's supposed to be God, the man, you know, your wife, and then your family. I also look at it that it all plays in a cohesive, you know, unit if it's done properly.
Yes.
Because I think in relationships, a lot of men will look like, oh, I'm the head and I'm this, and they're ruling with an iron fist. Yeah. And that's not the way God intended it to be. So I want to be able to pour my heart into the woman that I'm with. And so in return, she's going to do the same thing. And so it becomes this, it's almost like when you think about the ecosystem.
Yes.
And the ecosystem, the way God set it up is that it works. We don't know, we see how it works. Sometimes we're at odd how it works, but it works. And then when something comes in and disrupts it, it's all out of whack. And so when you think about the dynamic of relationship, the dynamic of family, those are the areas or whatever that I feel like sometimes that the enemy is trying to truly destroy by making interjections and coming in various different ways.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. So what are you looking forward to the most with getting married?
I would say that the biggest thing I'm looking forward to the most is that opportunity to be able to build with somebody.
Yes.
It's something that it's a beauty in. Especially when I look at older couples that have been, you know, together for a while, you know, I look at it and I don't look at it and just say, oh, they're just such an amazing looking couple. I think about they've been through some stuff.
A whole lot.
They've been through a whole lot of stuff, but they've endured the test of times, because that's just relationship, and that lets you know that they're in tune with one another. And so I think the biggest thing with me is just that opportunity to build, and that opportunity just to have somebody that I can just have fun with and laugh with, and that, you know, when I come home from a long day of private chef work or whatever it is I'm doing, that this becomes this place of peace for me.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing, because sometimes I've been in relationships where
you don't even want to come home.
I didn't want to come home. I did not want to come home at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, to have that moment of being able to come home and just to have a place of rest.
Yes.
I think, honestly, and I always jokingly say this, that you know, I feel like I have decorating skills a little bit. You know, I have that artistic side of me. But at the same time, my home still isn't like the same way that a woman typically can do
Of course not.
Like, you can walk into a woman's home that's just single, and I'm just like,
wow, it's like y'all
exactly.
Y'all put a lot of work in this. You got interior decorators.
You know, when you have that, and when you have somebody that, even when you feel that element of peace of just walking into their home, that makes you think, man, how much more could this be in a relationship?
That I can have it 24 hours a day.
24 hours a day.
And see, that's what women have to understand, is that, and I talk about this in the past, is that The reason why Delilah got Samson is because in the Bible says Samson found a safe place to lay his head. And I said, how strange is that Samson found that as a safe place to lay his head, when every time he opened his eyes up, everything that he said to Delilah, you know, she would manifest by having people trying to tie him up or whatnot. Right. But it was still a safe space. Now, I believe that Samson was dealing with a straight Jezebel spirit. But the fact that the Bible says a safe space, that's what men want. Men need a safe place. We don't need all that nagging. You know, we need women that edifies us with our words. If we do something that they don't like, they have a problem with, that they're able to craft the phrase to get us to do it without saying, see, what you're not going to do is such. Just say, hey, baby, you know what? I really love it when you do X, Y, Z. Then he goes, oh, okay. Now, I hate it when you do such and such. I really love it when you do this. And that takes a lot of work. You said something that I definitely don't want to just glaze over. You said the work that you did in the military. First of all, shout out to you for protecting us, because I'm one of those people. You couldn't pay me to go to the military, but I always applaud men and women who actually put our lives before theirs and go fight for our country. So touch on that. What years did you spend in the military? And you talked about suffering from PTSD. So touch on that.
So I signed up in the military actually when I was in my final year at Bible college. So I was
in Bible college.
Yeah, I didn't talk a lot about that. Nobody. I don't think I even spoke about it on the show. Like I know KG talked about. I think he was a deacon or something like that in a while. But I was in school for ministry, and I was actually going through the youth ministry program at the time. And so I joined. I graduated there in '99, and then as soon as I graduated, I came back home. And I did a lateral transfer because I swore in initially in Oklahoma City MEPS. And I came back to Houston, got all my things dropped off, and headed off to basic training, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And then I went to Fort Lee, Virginia. But yeah, I was in from '99 until 2008, I think is when I completely ETS. Because then at that time I was at the Sheriff's Department.
Hold on. First of all, people think that you're a lot older than what you are. They look at you, they think you're in your 50s and all that type of stuff. Tell these people how old you are.
So I am 40 years old. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of things on social media. There's literally been posts that have been made in regards to my age. As you can see, my beard has been shaved down a little bit more because periodically I will take it off. But I'm 40 years old, September 4th, 1980. I am a Virgo. So, But I'm not as old as some of you all think. So. This is what getting shot at does to you, I think. When you get shot at so much, unfortunately, I didn't have a beard or anything like that on the military side, but the gray hair started coming in my head.
Coming in, all that stress.
And when I was in law enforcement, they used to call me Silver Striker because I used to have a little gray streak in my head.
So you talking about when you were in law enforcement, what, about 35?
I was in law enforcement actually when I was 25.
Oh, way back then?
Yeah. I was 25. I was a lot younger because at that point in time, I'd already transitioned to the reserve side of the military. So I was
early.
Yeah, I was 25 years old.
You had gray already.
And I had gray already. Yeah.
So your time in the military, you said you suffer from PTSD.
Yeah.
Talk on that, because we're talking about healing. We're talking about healing first. And oftentimes in the African-American communities, we don't spend enough time talking about mental health. And I was so glad that you brought that up on the show because now you created space for people to talk about that. So talk about your struggle or your battle with PTSD.
So my struggle with PTSD, it first started when I got back from Iraq in 2004. I hadn't identified that it was PTSD. I just knew that I had this inability to sleep, that I would wake up with a lot of times into these night tremors where I would have like explosions and different things of that nature, but I wasn't associating it with PTSD at the time. And a young lady that I was dating, suggested, she was like, I think this may be something in regards to you, in your military time. So she's actually the one that called the VA hospital, first scheduled appointment for me. I go and they do their assessment and they say, oh, you don't have PTSD. You just have symptoms of PTSD. And I say, well, if I got symptoms of PTSD, wouldn't you think that I have PTSD? Because that don't make any sense. Like I'm having these night tremors. I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning every single night, curling up in a fetal position. I found myself, especially in large crowds around that time, I did not like being in large crowds. So I was always kind of like, looking around, checking my back. If I heard a loud noise, I was always startled by it. And so once they finally diagnosed the PTSD, they prescribed me some medication that honestly I stopped taking. It made me very lethargic. It put me into like a deep sleep to a point where it was almost as if I was internally awake, but my body was still asleep. And I'm almost looking at myself like trying to wake myself up. And I was like, no, I can't take this anymore. And so I had to start finding other avenues to be able to deal with it. I first had to stop watching military movies. I'm a military movie person, and I realized that sometimes after watching those movies, that was a trigger for me.
Yeah.
So I had to completely remove myself from military movies. I'm better now to where I can watch it and not necessarily have the issue happen.
Yeah.
But at that particular time when it was so close, I couldn't do it. And so a part of I started working for a nonprofit organization, and the premise of this organization was that we would go out and serve the inner city communities that were underserved in a lot of areas in Houston, and then outside of Houston, and I would cover the central region. So I would fly to these areas and create these service opportunities for our veterans, but it not only served the purpose of helping veterans, but it also served the community. So it brought the community together and gave them engagement and took ownership of their area, at the same time working with a veteran that's been in combat. And so that became therapeutic. And when I noticed that it started working in me, I was 100% all in regards to making sure that I shared this with other veterans. Like, hey, I know you don't, may not want to come out or want to be in a crowd, but I promise you that if you come out and you see what it is we're doing, and you see the effect that it's having on the people in this community, I promise you to change your life. And I'm honestly, Wounded Warrior Project is the first organization that connected me with this nonprofit. I've heard about that. The Wounded Warrior Project, I'm forever indebted with them because I first started with their physical health and wellness program. And so there was a young lady named Jackie Cantu, forever indebted to her. And she, just a great-hearted, great-spirited person that you can tell. And she wasn't even a veteran. Worked for the organization, and you can sense her heart was just for helping veterans. And so connecting with her and then various other different individuals that, when I was looking for a job at the time, a guy named Rudy connected me in the Warriors of Rope program. And so the relationships that I built there, it pushed me into the nonprofit sector, and then that nonprofit and the experience and the things that we did out there became healing for me. So serving the community and being able to help people that are less fortunate, not in the sense of, oh, I'm doing good and this is a pity party for you. And this is all about, this is what God mandated us to do anyway.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so engrossed, and I always try to encourage people that although the service industry may not be your industry, and may not, but God has always given each and every one of us a heart of compassion.
Yes.
So it should always be within our means to be able to help somebody.
Yes.
To be able to do what we can do, because our own personal experiences are not just for us. And the moment that we can identify that and realize that, the better off we'll be. Is that don't be ashamed about what you went in or what you dealt with. Don't be ashamed because you got terminated from this job.
Yes.
What you learn from that is going to help somebody else if you're willing to be able to share that story.
There it is. That's what this whole podcast is about, is me transparently allowing people an inside look on what a single man goes through before taking on a wife. Yeah. And so I literally allow people to go on my journey as I discover, uncover, and recover love. Hey, if that headphones, take the headphones off, because you keep trying to straighten it up, and I want you to keep that hat on. So we're gonna put that. You're the first person that don't need to have the headphones. I want you to rock that hat.
Right.
I want you to rock that hat so you can be 100% comfortable. Another thing I want to talk about. So while you were dating, at the zenith, the top, the point of struggling with PTSD, how did that play, or how did that affect your relationships?
I would say the PTSD affected it because I was not as open in regards to sharing my thoughts and feelings. Like now I feel like I'm at a better place where the older that you get, the more you start identifying. Yeah. Like, look, being transparent. You basically get to a point, like, especially like when people say, and maybe it happened before 40, but like something happened at 40, and I turned 40 when I was on the show. It's to a point where it's like, you know what? I'm grown. Exactly what it is. Like, I don't give a hoot what anybody else thinks about what's going on, because this is my journey. And when you think about life and you identify it as a journey, and you look at it like when you think about a marathon. I ran my first marathon 3 years ago. Never in a million years would have ever considered doing it. I had done a half marathon. I had done Tough Mudders, all those, but I never saw myself running 26.2 miles. But it was almost as if God was saying to me, you're going to learn something on this run. And it hurt. I'm telling you, like I started off fine. The first, 13 miles or whatever, I'm doing good. And then that second half, I started seeing that, okay, now it's really hitting the fan. But he taught me that each person that's running this journey right now, they're not competing with anybody else. They're competing with themselves. I met a group of, older ladies that were a group of 4 ladies, and they would run 3 minutes, walk 3 minutes, run 3 minutes, walk 3 minutes. I met another group of young men or whatever, older gentlemen. They would kind of have the same kind of method. And you had some that would just power walk it the whole time. So everybody had their own method to make it to the finish line, but the objective was making it to that finish line. And
Talk about it.
Even through the pain, and that was like literally a 1 mile away from me finishing this marathon, I get the worst cramp ever. And a paramedic sees me, she comes over and she rubs it's like icy hot or something like that, that released the cramp in my leg. But I basically hobbled my way in, and it was almost like, this is the equivalent of life, because life will throw some curveballs at you that will hurt you. And sometimes you got to just hobble just to move forward. And as you're moving forward, it's like God is saying, I'm going to strengthen you. I'm going to strengthen you. I'm going to help you make it to the end. And you have to have that tenacity on the inside to be able to make it happen. But I would say to answer your question on the PTSD part is that it just affected me because I just wasn't open. I did find myself to be agitated about a lot of things at that time, especially when I was very, very close, coming back from Iraq. It was just this irritation level, because a lot of times, you're accustomed to the military way of doing things. And when you deal with the civilian side, where they don't have that mentality, like, we just like to get it done. Yeah. We ain't got no time for the, all excuses, this and that. All this. Like, I talked to an employer today, because in the midst of what I do, I also help veterans find employment. So the guy was like, man, I really want to hire veterans. I really want to, that mindset, because there is a certain mindset that comes along with the person that has served in the military, and especially somebody that's been deployed in combat. Once you've been in combat, like I was joking the other day, somebody was like, oh, can you really, really drive? I say, look, I done driven in combat, and I've driven as a law enforcement officer. Yeah, I can drive. So I know texting and driving ain't the best thing to do, but I tell people all day long, I say I used to use a computer when I was driving, because you had to be able to get updates or whatever that was on a call. So
computer.
That's just been the journey, man. You may get hurt along the way, but you got to keep moving forward, because if you sit there and sit still, it's just like water that sits there and becomes stagnated. It becomes unhealthy and bad. It starts stinking.
One thing that you said that was powerful along the journey of running the marathon, you said when you got a cramp, somebody came, a medic came, and they began to rub something on you. And as men, we have to be willing to allow people to come help us, whether that's by way of a therapist, whether that's by way of just family and friends that see something wrong with us and say, hey, let me help you a little bit. Let me rub that little pain out for you instead. I got it. I'm a grown man. I don't care. A lot of men, we operate in such high levels of pride that we're not receptive to the help that God is trying to bring to us. Dude. And so that's a powerful analogy.
That's spot on right there, man. That actually, when I think about associating that in my business right now, like, I think Chefs in the City is growing, but, I just recently connected with a friend of mine that she does, a lot of marketing, different things. And she said, are you ready to release the reins? And when she said, are you ready to release the reins? I kind of smiled at her like, yeah. She said, no, are you really ready to release the reins? Go. Because she knows how I operate. Not that you get to a point where, like, this is your baby and you want to nurture it, but you got to get to a point where you are trusting enough to allow other people that got certain skill sets to be able to help manifest the vision that you have. And that's why I feel like it's God is always saying, like, look, you're not doing this alone. This journey, it may be your path and your journey, but I'm going to set people up along that path. It's kind of like that road to Damascus. There's going to be some things that are going to take place on that path that's going to go. And if you're unwilling to allow anybody into your life, it's not going to get there. You're going to remain at a lower level.
Exactly.
And so when you think about relationship and just us as men as a whole, we have a tendency not to want to receive help. Yes. And I've even found myself, I've had people to say, hey, I'm able to do this. And it's like in my back of my mind, I'm like, do I really want them to do this, but I got to trust him.
I get on my son about that a lot. He'll be like, I got it. No, you don't, son. Let me help you. As a father, I'm supposed to help you at this point. And then sometimes he'll ask for my help. He used to do that a whole lot. Hey, can you help me? And I'd be like, no, you go figure it out. Right. Because I want him to exercise that muscle in his brain to learn to figure it out. Because manhood is also a part of figuring out. When you're raising a family and you just got laid off from your job, you can't come home and be like, man, the white man done fired me, forget them. And then you just sit at home and play video games all day. You got to figure it out and say, okay, this happened to me. Now, how do I bounce back? How do I figure out how to put food on my table?
That's how my business started, through a termination.
Talk about it.
I got to, and I'm going to say that the journey that I've been on, I never in a million years would have ever seen myself being terminated 3 different times. It was the most hurtful thing ever because, and this is the nonprofit that I was sharing with you that I started working at. And well, the first one actually was I was working in logistics. So this is a company that has several chefs, and we're doing the PGA golf tours. We're doing Cirque du Soleil. I'm supplying equipment to all these different places. I'm there for a year and a half, July 7th, 2013. That's the first one. Then the next one that comes along, I'm working for the nonprofit, July 7th, 2015. So I started thinking to myself, like God, what is going on? Like a part of me is questioning, like, why is this taking place? And it became very hurtful, but through the hurt and the pain, I later discovered that I was only there for a short amount of time. I was there to be able to get that experience that I had to be able to sit there and literally, I never thought about becoming a chef. But I would go back there and I had love with the chefs where they gave me the key to the freezer. I could go back there or I could go back and watch them. I had the experience of being able to deal with 18-wheelers coming in and have shipments go in and out. I got all of this experience through that. Then I go to the nonprofit side and I start thinking about, like, right now where my heart and my compassion is in regards to the certain communities and then the homeless and just being able to help. And I remember starting this initiative, which I haven't started as a nonprofit, but it's called Everyday Hope. And it was an initiative to be able just to provide hope for people that are given up. And God reminded me that that door closed because I wanted it to close. Now, it may have came through something that, an infraction or maybe something that I may have missed doing. But when I started looking at it as a whole, I'm like, I just got a pay raise from this organization. They've just sent me a letter of account. Both companies had just given me a pay raise. I had just got a letter, stating or whatever, we're glad that you're on board and we're looking forward to you being here in the future. And so you're thinking like, okay, I got something that's stable, that's secure, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And I realized that when a door closes, it's not always closing for the purpose because on the other side of that door is something greater. Yes. And the thing is, we have to continually look at it that way. We have to get through the hurt and pain of what we're dealing with to see that, this may be a setup by God for you to be able to move into that next area of your life. That's how Chefs in the City came about. It came through the hurt and the pain of what I'm dealing with, but now I see why I needed that experience of working with those organizations. Because it's creating the foundation for you to thrive in the gift that God has given you for the desire. It's an amazing thing. I had a conversation with one of my good friends yesterday, and she just got laid off of her job yesterday. Yeah. And she had just been celebrated for a great accomplishment that she had not too long ago. And then yesterday she got a call that they're doing a layoff, and her position was a position that's getting laid off. And she was just like, she said she was hurt. I said, do you realize how awesome this is? Because the Bible says, for I know all things work together for the good of them that love God and to the called according to his purpose. So the way I handle what may be considered a setback is always a comeback. It's always a setup for God to open up some doors for me in my life. And so I said that to her. I had another friend today that's opening up this girls' home for foster kids. And she called me today and she just broke down crying. And she was like, this investor started out on this role with her, and after she literally the investor told her to like really do a complete rehab on the house, has basically texted last night and said, oh yeah, well I'm dealing with my brother that's fighting for his life right now. I'm not gonna be able to participate. And she's like, hold on, you just had me tear my whole facility down for you to say that. And so one thing that I always, and I told the same thing, I said, listen,
For I know all things work together for the good of them that love God and to the called according to his purpose. And what I've found out in my own life is that those moments, because I've gotten laid off several times from jobs, and but I always recognize, because they always say hindsight is 20/20.
Exactly.
And so when you look back, you recognize that God literally used that opportunity to set me up for the next opportunity and set me up for the next opportunity. I'm with you in the same space that you're at when you're talking about bringing on help to help elevate you to the next level. About a week ago, I had a conversation with this brand manager because I want to take everything that I'm doing and take it to the next level, because I said I can't do this all by myself. I was like, it's time for me to grow. And as African Americans, we build businesses, but they're just sole proprietorships. And in order to elevate to the next level, we got to build some corporations. Exactly. And so that's where God is really taking me to, is say, now listen, you're going to have to bring other people in, you're going to have to relinquish control, and that's what's going to take you to the next level. So I'm right there with you,
that's on point right there, man, because I literally explain, when I think about me in business, it's like, oh yeah, I have a business, but right now I'm the one that's kind of doing everything. I'm the marketing person. I'm the publicist. I'm all of these different things. And the thing is, God is saying, I'm putting people in your path right now that's going to be able to get you to that next level, because that's where I want you to be. You just got to be trusting enough. And so I made a post on IG yesterday or the day before, and there's somebody sent me a screenshot of me, I guess, being at the lake, and I had my hands lifted up. And this is right after Joy's sister had passed away, unfortunately. And when I looked at that picture, I thought about the picture, and what came to mind was that was a moment of surrender. It was a moment where I lifted my hands, because when you think about when you lift your hands, it's like you're basically, it's almost just like you're getting recharged from the heavens, but you're saying to God or whatever, like, look, I need you. And the biggest thing the post was in regards to me saying the most difficult thing that I think I've ever had to do in this life is to completely surrender.
There it is.
Because when you completely surrender, it's a whole nother freeing that comes along, and you almost have to do it daily, because you could find yourself being sucked back in, trying to do everything again. It's the same way with forgiveness. When I tell people forgiveness is not for the person, it's for you. And so when you find yourself walking out of love, or being pissed off about something somebody did that you say that you forgave them about 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago, that means you have to remind yourself, I made a decision to forgive. So when I wake up in the morning, I literally have to say to myself, God, thank you for waking me up this morning. I surrender my will for your will.
There it is.
Because I want my will to be in alignment with what you have going on. And sometimes it can be a power struggle.
Yeah, be a
we say Jesus take the wheel, but do we really want Jesus to take the wheel? You know what I mean? It's like, when you really say Jesus take the wheel, do you really want him to take the wheel, or at least have him in the passenger seat riding along with you? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because when you're in alignment with what he wants for you, then everything it just falls into place,
Yeah, when you're right on point with that. This season 2, I surrendered season 2 of the podcast to God, and I said, God, you bring the people that you want on the podcast. You make the subject matter whatever you want to make it. I did an episode called a vow of abstinence that I did on December the 30th.
I saw part of that one.
Man, I took a vow to say I'm not having sex with nobody until I get married. But if you go back a couple of episodes from that, a few episodes, here I was on the podcast talking about with Jay Barnett. We were discussing how I'm literally having sex outside of marriage as a Christian man, and laughing about it and joking, say, hey, this is just the season I'm at right now. And then fast forward, God says, I need you to stop all that. And then but that's what surrendering looks like. It's saying, God, listen, I give my will to you, and I cast all my cares on you because you care for me. You know ultimately what's going to make me a better man, that's going to make me a better husband, that's going to make me a better father. And a man, one thing that I respect about people in the military is y'all understand authority. You know how to fall up under authority, and y'all are so inundated with that ideology that you're willing to risk your life based upon somebody in higher command to tell you, hey, go do X, Y, Z. They'll tell you the reason why to do it, and sometimes they don't even tell you the reason. You just got to
follow that order and go out there and do it.
Go out there and do it. And if we can be that submitted to another man, then why can I be that submitted to my Heavenly Father?
Exactly. That's powerful right there, man.
Think about it.
I like the way that you put that, because honestly, I had never really even thought it. I've always associated like the love that I have for my son, and I think about, if I love my son this much, how much more does our Heavenly Father love us?
Yes.
So when you gave that example right there, it's like, man, I took orders from a captain. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Whether it be I understood it, whether it be I disagreed with it, I followed the orders. And that hits true right there, man.
Because you go out and do it. I mean, literally thousands of miles away from home in the most treacherous situations. Like you said, bombs going off everywhere. Yeah. You're afraid for your life. And they tell you, go over there and do that. Yeah. And you do it.
And you just do it.
You don't question it. You be like, oh, okay. And you go do it. And you know that, hey, I am in this position and I made an oath to give my life for this country. And I can't give my sexuality for my Heavenly Father that I ultimately going to benefit from anyway by manifesting the wife that He has desired for me, and to put me in the level of self-control to where that I don't step outside of my marriage like I did in my previous marriage. And so I said, God keeps it real with me. He said, Lateris, the only way you'll be faithful to your wife unless you first become faithful to me. And I said, yeah, you told me that the first time. He said, and how'd that work out for you? I said, I stepped out and I cheated on my last wife. All right, so are we going to do something different this time? Well, I mean, but God, on the way to meeting her, like with my wife, when I meet her, then we cannot have sex. He said, well, what about the road there? Yeah. What about the hearts that you break? What about the soul ties that you enter into? What about the women that you sell false hope to by sleeping with them? I know they say they can understand it. I know that they say they can agree with it. They like women nowadays.
You preaching to me is all I can say.
Man, let me tell you something, because that's where I was. It was like God was like, I kept saying, well, we're grown. Women nowadays they build a little differently. If you have a real conversation with them and say, are you down with this? And they say, we down. Hey, this ain't a relationship. They say, cool. And he says, but how has that worked out for you?
Right.
I mean, some people will be able to take it, and some people it'd be a little drama. Sometimes it'd be a little, whatever. Like, no, I didn't build you like that. You're not an F boy. You are a kingdom man. You can't operate under those same principles. I got to elevate you to another level, and I need you to die to yourself. So surrendering all is dying to yourself and say, God, I'm going to take the order. You're my commander in chief. Whatever you tell me to do, you ultimately know the provision. You know the plans in front of me. So let me go and submit my will to your will.
All I can say is I sat here in this seat or whatever. If it wasn't to hear anything else, it was to hear that, man. Because that's actually something internally that I've just been personally struggling with, where it's like I'm hearing it and it's like, dude, you got to get to that point. Because when you think about where you're at right now, it may, once you die to that part, it may be a struggle where it's like, man, you really crave it. But once you know that you're in the will of God, the way that the will of God wants you to be, things just like smooth sailing. So to hear that and to hear you to share it like that, it's like, I mean, that's almost like God saying, dude, I've been telling you this. Now I'm going to tell you this again.
I'm going to have you come to Dallas. I'm going to put you on the plane.
I'm going to put you on the plane to Dallas and come hear it again.
Because the reality is that God told me that free men. And so I couldn't have a conversation like that with somebody if I was in bondage. I'm not playing church. I'm not sitting there telling you what I heard, what I should say. It's what I lived, and I lived in the spirit of rebellion without even thinking that I'm being rebellious. And God said, now how's that? And I don't even miss it. Like I've had enough sex in my life to last me for a lifetime. And so I don't miss it. Right. I'm literally at a point, and what feels so great is being in the will of God. To literally wake up and be like, because at first I kept saying, no, God, what am I going to do with these urges I have? I don't even have any urges. You know what I'm saying? It was all these thoughts that I had in my mind leading up to this, that was just lies I told myself. Because after walking into it, God has given me the grace over it.
I like that.
And that's one thing we have to understand, is that God will meet you in the point of submission. He will meet you with grace. So at the point of submission, He will meet you with grace. And that's why He says, not my will, but let thy will be done. Jesus had to do that same act of submission. You think it was easy for Him to surrender His life? He said, oh God, Lord, God, Heavenly Father, man, please take this cup from me. So I had my take this cup from me moment. I don't want to do this, God. And then I had to say, but God, not my will, but let thy will be done. And then His grace covered me.
Dude, I ain't never been one to sit there and shout or run in the church, but I'm telling you, you're going to make me jump up out of this seat or whatever. It's something special, man. I can tell you, I share with many people is that God is always speaking to us in one way or another, whether it be we're sitting on the couch, eating on some popcorn, watching a TV commercial, that he's going to reiterate the same message. Like the word of God is the word of God, but if we don't catch it from there, he's going to give it to us another way. And so I just love moments like this, because it's just almost that cosigning of like, okay, God, I've already told you this.
So what has He been saying to you?
Literally in regards to just the whole sexual topic, and just when you think about surrendering, like you don't want to just surrender parts of you. You want to surrender all of you. And so that when you think about just that particular aspect, sex is a powerful thing.
It is.
Sex is a unifying thing. God created it to be a good thing a lot of time. And so when I think about being in the mix of it, always in my mind, I'm like, Edwin, you're doing wrong, but then you're also justifying.
Yeah,
it.
Be like, hey.
And I got to get myself to a point where I'm even in that vein of doing it, because I realize that that's where the perfect will of God exists. That's where the perfect flow of God exists. Because when I'm in that flow, I think I even said it in the post, when I'm in that flow, that's when the things that he wants to happen in our lives, they happen. It's not just like the little blessings that go here and here.
Yes.
Because when we think about the definition of a blessing, sometimes we'll look at it as the physical things that we receive. And I, of course, when growing up, I used to always think, oh, well, God blessed me and God this. Well, the blessing is already inside of you, because he's empowered you to be able to manifest certain things in your life. So when you think about it, if you're in that complete will in the way that he wants you to operate, it's almost like the Midas touch. Everything you touch turns to gold, because you're operating in his will. And so I've been struggling with that, dude, but I'm hearing you say it, and it's like, Edwin, dude, you know what you got to do. And then to hear you say about the grace that he gives you in regards to it, I like that, because it's like, when I think about the marathon again, I'm running and the pain moment hits, but the paramedic comes out, and that's almost like Jesus or God just coming out saying, I got you. You hurting, but I got you, and you're gonna finish this race, and you're gonna finish it strong.
You're talking about you about to run. Let me tell you something. I'm about to tear this whole studio. Let me tell you something. The grace, the paramedic will meet you. And in the Bible, he says that he's the great physician.
Yeah.
So the reality is there's no hurt that he can't heal.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no situation that he can't walk us through. You know what I'm saying? And that's why the Bible says greater is he that is in me than he that's in the world. Yeah. So whatever we're battling against, you got your armed troops around you. You got the armed force. You got everybody. You got the military squad. You got everybody that's going to fight your battle for you. And so that's the thing that I just want to encourage you. I didn't even realize that was going to resonate to you like that, or resonate with you like that. But like I said, I'll be your accountability partner when you want to walk through this. Because that's where God is calling us to be, and the place that he wants us to walk in as kingdom men. We got to be different than just the typical man that's out there. Exactly. And like I said, God's grace will meet us there. So as you continue to walk through this healing journey, as you continue becoming the one for the one, what does that look like? What does dating look like for you?
Dating right now for me is, it's going to have to be really intentional. I can say right now it hasn't really taken place the way, because I've kind of gotten back into the flow of work and getting things, going there. But I would say that it's going to have to be something that's very intentional in regards to me, because I could say that when I think about past situations, I haven't been intentional in the way that I should. And so moving forward, I think even in the mix of just the self-care and me taking time for myself, I think if I allow myself just that time of taking care of me a little bit, then I could truly invest in somebody else and say, okay, well, hey, let's do this and let's enjoy life together, because, there's just so much, I think, so much beauty in what God has provided us on this earth, is that, you could experience it alone, but I think there's a benefit in being unified with somebody that you can grow with and then, grow old with. Yeah. Like I want to grow old with somebody. I want to be an old chef in the kitchen, coming in and shaking with some pancakes, or you know what I mean? But I want to grow old with somebody. And I think that's just a special thing. And I think moving forward, I just have to be at that place of being intentional. The biggest word that I could ever use is setting the right intentions with whoever it may be.
They say that a man knows. Do you think that you will know when you meet her?
I've always heard that. And that's one of the things that I would like to say that will happen. Because I overthink things sometimes, I think, I found myself at a point like, God, is this a person, or is it going to be this? Or, or then sometimes I'll find something that may be wrong with them. And it's like, dude, are you like, nobody's going to be 100% perfect.
Yes.
That's what I first have to identify. Is nobody's going to be perfect. But I believe that a lot of times, you will. Because, when you think about, God knows what it is you need. And God knows what it is that other person needs. And I believe that the moment that, you tap in with that person, I've heard a lot of my guys were like, dude, I just knew. Like I talked to a good buddy of mine the other day that I deployed to Iraq with. And he asked me, he said, dude, are you ready? Like, are you really ready to get married? Like he was coming from a place like, dude, are you really ready to sit down? Are you ready to put away, the childish things? Are you really ready to do what you have to do? And I said, dude, I believe that I am. So him saying that, because like he's already married now, and And he was the dude or whatever that was like,
never gonna get married.
I was like, my man Jay Simp ain't gonna ever get out there right now, but but he did, and he's a great guy, man. So I got much love and respect for him for just even asking me that, because it really put me in a place of stopping to think, like, Edwin, are you really ready? And then when you say, are you ready? What does ready look like, and what does it mean to be ready? Because we can say verbally we're ready, but everything else is in shambles.
Exactly.
So that's the reason why I say, going back to that self-care. And when I say self-care, breaking that down, and what does self-care look like? The therapy side of things, making things, in regards to relationship with my father that may not have been the best because he wasn't a part of my life, and reestablishing relationship there for the sake of my son. Yeah. Because, there are generational curses that exist. And I believe that now, as much as I didn't want to be that person, to have to break those, it's like God saying, no, dude, you the person. Yeah. Your daddy ain't gonna pick up the phone or whatever and say, son, I love you, son, this, son, that. You're gonna have to be that person.
There it is.
Or you may be the person that have to, whatever that generational curse is. It's like sometimes we have to identify that as much as we don't want to accept that mantle, sometimes the mantle is put on us because God has gifted us in a certain area to be able to change the dynamic of the way our family has been. And I'm definitely, I'm all on board with doing that with mine right now.
When you're preaching, it's the same thing I walked through last week episode. We talked about that in Heal Brother Heal 2. I talked to my son about that. Armani were very open about that. I adopted him about a year and a half ago. And I told him that I allowed him to keep his last name. Yeah. Because I said, it's your job to change the trajectory of your father's last name. That's it. And I said, you've experienced a lot of hurt and pain. I said, that mantle is on you now. Yeah. And you're the remnant. And so, and this sister cried. She came to the adoption and she was just like, wow. She just looked over at me when the judge, because they asked you a series of questions. They say, you are saying that you want him to keep his last name? Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, Your Honor. And she just looked at me. She said, thank you. And I told her after that, I said, it's because it's his job. Exactly. I understand the mandate, and I believe he's going to be exceptional with it. So listen, man, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with you. Can't wait till you bring that love into your life, bring that woman into your life. I definitely want to invite you back on the podcast when you do. How can people reach out to you on social media? Drop your social media handle.
So my social media, Instagram is Chefs in the City 713. And you can find me also on Facebook, Chefs in the City 713 as well. Twitter, I just finally created a Twitter account. So, my friends are, they jokingly call me Hollywood. So my alias right now, my alter ego is Hollywood Henderson. Hollywood Henderson. So it's Chef Edwin Hollywood, AKA Hollywood Henderson.
There it is, Hollywood Henderson. So definitely, but you're most active on Instagram, right?
I'm most active on Instagram. Correct.
Yeah, so that's where your DM is on fire.
Yeah, it's completely full right now, dude.
So what happens when, real quick, when somebody reaches out to you on IG? Do you even respond to a lot of them? Or what?
I will be honest. I say I do. I gradually try to respond, and that's why when I do these cooking lives, I know that there have been a lot of people that say, "Oh, I sent you a message, you never responded." I try to make it my point to be able to respond back, because I feel like there's been times that I've reached out to people, maybe not necessarily anybody that's been on TV, but there's been local chefs in the city of Houston that are well known. And when I first got into the industry, there was something that I gravitated to in regards to how they operated business wise. And I just wanted to kind of pick their mind. Never responded. Now, maybe they didn't get the message, but I told myself I didn't want to be the person that just didn't respond. That's how I feel like I'm so out of touch. Yeah. Because I tell people, I say I'm a regular person like the rest of you all on the same journey of trying to walk in what God desires for me. And so I try, even if it's a lady that's trying to shoot her shot. Yeah. I may say, she may send pictures or something, and I say, oh, lovely, thank you for the pictures, lovely pictures. But, you shoot your shot all day long until you hear swish. You may not necessarily hear swish with me, but, I try to show love back, because I'm going to be honest with you, dude. I've gotten on a lot of love from men too. A lot of love in regards to me being transparent on the show. And so I didn't think it was going to have that kind of, impact. But it's great to see that even though they only showed me in that one, particular light, that it resonated with so many people that, and women are saying, hey, I struggle with just being open and honest. But now, because of watching you on the show, I'm at a place now where I'm opening up more. I'm sharing my feelings more. I'm actually getting ready to go into therapy because I really feel like I need to do X, Y, and Z. So,
and that's the reason why I invited you. because that resonated with me. And the women that you were building connections with, I thought that you were even choosing from a wise standpoint, you know, even trying to connect with Joy. Joy seems like a pretty solid woman.
Amazing
I don't know her
woman.
personally,
Absolutely amazing
but she seems
woman.
very solid.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, all right, I see how you moving. And then when you were transparent enough to be vulnerable in that scene with her, I said, I want to talk to that brother.
Yeah, I told myself, why, you know, go into a situation and not be 100% authentic on who I am. I never in a million years saw myself doing a reality show. It wasn't like I was like, you know, I wasn't a craving person like, oh, I really got to be on a reality show. You know, some people may desire that. I honestly had not responded to whoever the talent scout was, or you know, was searching when they sent me a message in my IG account, and then eventually I responded. I said, you know what? I said, it's 2020. I said, you know, the Rona is here. I said, Godzilla may attack in 2021. We don't know what's going to happen. So I say, I'll just take the opportunity. I say, I'm not in a relationship, and I honestly believe that it was a part of the whole plan that God wanted me on. Because like when I think about like how you shared things today that have just kind of touched my spirit, there were things that were shared while I was on the show in conversation with the men and conversation with Joy and with Rashid. There was so many of those moments. It makes me wonder, okay, well, would I have gotten that same, you know, thought process from somebody else back at home? It was like, it was intended.
It was intended.
It was intended for that.
Because that's what, when God says, I will order your steps, the steps of a righteous man are ordered, he'll have you move to where you need to move, to hear this conversation over here, to move over here, to hear that conversation. And then because you was on that show, it brought you on this podcast for you to hear this conversation, and you and I are going to stay connected. And so it's just, this is how God is. You know, especially if you're a man of God. He has to move like that on our behalf. And so, man, I'm excited for you. Best of luck with your business. I speak blessings on your business. I want God to anoint it and just blow that doggone thing through the water. Just blow it up.
I receive that, man.
And you get so much business, you can't handle it. Hey, y'all give it up for Edwin Henderson.
Appreciate you, man. Pleasure being on.
Yes, sir.
Discover, uncover, recover love. With the new Dear Future collection. The journey starts from within. Let your inner thoughts find freedom on the pages of this richly hued Dear Future Blue Sapphire Edition genuine leather journal. It features a cross-stitched spine and luxurious cording to bind your deepest insights. A great accompaniment is the Dear Future Luxury Bamboo Fountain Pen. There's nothing more intentional than the writing process of a fountain pen. This is an elegant writing work of art. Join the thriving community of fountain pen enthusiasts and purchase one today. These exclusive items and more are available at dearfuturewifey.com.
I really enjoyed talking to Edwin. Thank you, Edwin, for showing up as your authentic self. I really, really found value in this conversation that we had. Well, in the month of February, I decided to write a poem to my future wifey and celebrate her and honor her for the month of February, since this is the month of love. And so this is the second installment of Love Edition. We'll just call that Love Edition. We just made that up. Dear future wifey, this Valentine's Day has got me in my feelings. Your love got me like Lionel, I'm dancing on the ceiling. Your beautiful curves are so appealing. Our cards are on the table, let's start dealing. I'm willing to debunk my masculinity, embrace your femininity, love you to infinity with my body, soul, and spirit, that's the Trinity. Are you hearing me? Said that's the Trinity. Go ahead and cheer with me. I'll lay hands on you whether praying or playing. Feel what I'm saying. Cuddle up beside your sexy body when we're laying. If you don't get your cold feet off my leg, girl, I'm playing. This is until death do we part, so I'm staying. You and me, 10,000 demons we are slaying. Look that up in Deuteronomy. Our love is an anomaly. We have complete autonomy, loving each other honestly. Queen, let's build this dynasty. We throning, ain't no rivalry. Our destiny was meant to be. I can't wait till you marry me. I can't wait till you marry me. Our love will become the personification of this poetry. Your future husband. Thank you for listening to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Remember, be lit, live intentionally and transparently, and don't stop loving. Make sure to subscribe to our Dear Future Wifey YouTube channel. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We welcome your support. Simply share our podcast with your friends and family.